Hard truth time for conservative voters and media members. Poilievre lost. They lost badly. It is bad for the Conservative Party, and their situation is getting worse. Poilievre is not in a good position going forward, and it's time for us to acknowledge some truths. All right, why did Poilievre lose? Yes, Donald Trump changed the entire face of the election. Yes, Doug Ford and Mark Carney and the Liberals made a sort of Faustian bargain for both their mutual benefit and power. But at the end of the day, Pierre Poilievre fumbled this, did not run a good campaign. There is no way you can convince me that Pierre Poilievre ran an effective campaign in that 38 days he was given. Yes, you can complain that 38 days is too short for an election cycle. It does a country disservice. I agree. Yes, you can complain that the Liberals should have called an election earlier and leaving us rudderless and defenseless when Trump came into office talking about annexation was the wrong thing to do. Yes, all of that is true. But we have to live in a reality where the Liberals get to set the narrative because the Conservative Party is too afraid to do so. And that is ultimately the reason why the Conservatives lost. They are philosophical cowards and losers. They were up 20 points. We all knew they were up 20 points. A lot of people suspected Justin Trudeau wouldn't run. But instead of expressing their own vision for the future and pushing forward, they looked at the polls and they said, hey, we're up so much, we're going to take our foot off the gas. Everyone remembers last year, a lot of conservatives making fun of it, right? What was Pierre Poilievre doing the year before the election? Happy holidays. Christmas is good. Hanukkah is good. Eid Mubarak, everyone. Happy, whatever. Every holiday he could do, except Diwali to piss off the Hindus, but that's not a separate story, but that's a bit aside. So it's just happy holidays, right? Trudeau bad. Happy holidays, everyone. We're going to axe the tax. They ran the most narrow, focused, cowardly campaign they possibly could. When the country was looking towards Pierre Poilievre as the next alternative, he could not step up and articulate the vision for Canada that was under Poilievre. And yes, I understand why people like Poilievre. I backed him in leadership. He ran a great conservative leadership campaign, just like a lot of people have done before him. And the problem is when the Conservative Party gets their claws in someone and makes them a leader, this is when things break down. So this is where you'll get people blaming Jenny Byrne. And yes, Jenny Byrne's mentality is 100% to blame. She has a loser mentality. With people like Jenny Byrne at the helm, we will never, ever be a functioning winning party because they all think like losers. But I will also say, to defend her in a way, if Jenny Byrne was to be fired and just like given as a sacrifice, like, oh, we got rid of Jenny Byrne now, under the current thing, they would bring in a new Jenny Byrne, and then we would repeat the same mistakes over and over. So in order to learn the mistakes, someone's going to have to acknowledge that the Conservatives run a very tight, centrally controlled, and this is just how Canada works. I get it. Parties are cults of the leaders, centrally controlled campaign where everything goes through the leader's office and we're all micromanaging and then not managing stuff. That's a really bad way. They need to unleash their candidates in order to make things. I mean, they look scared. And yes, the Liberals do the same thing, but the Liberals never look scared because they go on TV and they set their vision for the country. And it might be an insane vision. You might disagree with it. I've read snippets of Mark Carney's book. Yeah, he's an elitist globalist technocrat who has anti-humanity. Like, I don't like it, but at the end of the day, he's at least smart enough to know that he can get out there and he can go in front of the media. And if he sets his own narrative, they're going to parrot it outright. Poilievre never set his vision for the country. His strength, and he could have, and this is why we made him leader, because he has the capability to do this, yet he chose not to because every step along the way was one of fear and cowardice. The Conservative Party is highly reactive. They are not proactive. They fear a potential media response. So when they were up 20 points, they kept it to Trudeau bad, axe attacks, whatever. Poilievre is not a slogan guy like Trump. Poilievre is a very anti-Trump, not anti-Trump, but Poilievre is not Donald Trump as a politician. I'd say this, whatever. Trump can offer slogans and MAGA, and he can do, Trump can do a whole hour, right? And intermits and the weave and the slogans here. That's Trump's strength. Trump can run a whole rally. Pierre Poilievre's strength is in like the 5 to 10 minute mark, okay? And what Poilievre can always do is talk about an economic issue like housing, explain how it's gone wrong in Canada, and then give a 4-point plan of what he'll do to fix it. And that's how he won the Conservative leadership campaign. And that type of stuff can translate very well to Canadian politics. And there were some of those videos coming out at the beginning, and occasionally he would do them. But Poilievre never set the tone of like, look at me, I'm the Prime Minister of Canada. He was always scared and whatever. So you want to go to the Trump thing? Listen, Poilievre was beaten by Doug Ford and Mark Carney on this issue. All right, the Conservatives needed to hammer the Liberals of, listen, why are you having this leadership? Why are you resigning in March when we need to have an election now? Right? Why? Because the Conservatives want to run against Trudeau. But Doug Ford made a smart power play. Doug Ford jumped in the middle, because if Ontario, the largest province in the country, is having an election, you as the Conservative Party can't say we need an election now, because you can't run a provincial and federal election at the same time. Things get mixed. So Doug Ford gave narrative cover to the Liberals, right? And then Doug Ford ran a smart campaign. As I said, like, listen, I have no love for Doug Ford, but listen, say what you will about Doug Ford, but the one reason above all else why Doug Ford does not belong within 100 meters of the federal Conservative Party is because Doug Ford is a winner and they are all losers. Okay. And that's why he should not be allowed in the door, because it would ruin the vibe. Okay. Doug Ford won. Doug Ford knew how to win an election, set the precedent. I'm running a referendum on Trump, being hard on Trump. He actually took a maximalist approach. He went YOLO. We're going maximum tariff, shutting off the oil, like played hardball, looked in the eyes, played hardball. Yeah, it was an insane thing, but at least he went to the max. Then knowing everyone on the left was trying to build, they can't go even further than him. So no one was able to counter the narrative. And he set the question for the election. And as you saw, the media went along with it and all that. Okay. That then framed the narrative for the federal election, where Pierre Poilievre didn't understand how to be courageous and dynamic and take the narrative. Right? What Pierre needed to do is, like, the Conservative Party was caught flat-footed. Is the Conservative Party going to acknowledge that when the writ was dropped, they didn't have candidates in 30 effing ridings? And they knew the writ was going to drop from January, right? Justin Trudeau announces he's going to resign in March. So you know he's going to resign in March. There's going to be Liberal leadership. And then sometime around April to, let's say, June, there's likely to be an election. How were there not candidates in the effing ridings? You were lobbying for an election for years and years and years, yet you didn't have candidates in all the ridings. Well, why? Because you were up 20 points and you thought you could sell these ridings for money. That's what it was. You thought you could sell them for money, like you did in friggin' Abbotsford and other places. You thought you could sell them, then it got too much, and you had to fill them with whoever was there after you played nonsense with the ridings, and you pissed off your base doing it. And 30 ridings when the writ dropped had some parachuting candidate who had to hit the ground running, didn't have any infrastructure in there, came into a new riding, didn't have the doors knocked, had to go around and knock the doors for the first time instead of the second time. What are you doing? 30 ridings? You didn't know? In January? It would be one thing if the election was dropped last year totally out of left field. You were given a 3-month warning. What are you doing? And I have to pretend that Johnny Burns some political genius and they ran a campaign. No, I don't. I don't have to believe this. I can see with my own eyes. You messed up. And then their whole election strategy. Oh, we need to win the 905 by being moderate. Do you even know who lives in the 905? Indian Canadians. You know what Indian Canadians don't like? Getting murdered. You know who's advocating to murder them? Calistani lunatics. Where was Pierre Poilievre the last week of the election? You have 38 days, a short sprint election that I guess, yes, you probably need 2.5 months to make it blah, 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 blah. The last week of the election, crunch time. Pierre Poilievre flies across the country, long flight to BC, to go to a parade where there's pictures of Tawinder Parmar, the greatest mass murderer of Canadians in Canadian history, our Osama bin Laden. Maybe Pierre Poilievre should have spent more time in Carlton than he did in Khalistan. Is that going to come up in the nomination review? And he lost 3 ridings in Brampton, straight out Brampton, and Parmgill went down because of this. Because people spite voted. Indian Hindu Canadians are the second most likely to vote Conservative of any religious group. 1, evangelical Christians. Shout out to the evangelical Christians. Another maligned, forgotten part of the Conservative Party who you should also be nicer to. They're great at organizing. Stop being afraid of the evangelical Christians. That's another thing. So that's one, your number one base. Conservative party, again, hating the conservative base. Ooh, evangelical Christians, they seem too crazy. Sorry, no, it's a Christian country. They're the most effective organizers you have in the party by far, and you need them. And they're also really good people. So what are we doing? What are we doing? If we can't say that they're good people, what are we even doing as a conservative party? Anyway, second, Hindu Canadians. What do they like most of all? Not getting murdered. You should not be promoting mass murderers of Hindus. Maybe that helps. That might have helped. Energize your base. Huh? Grow the base. Energize the base. You still got, yes, you got 41% of the country to drag their feet and go, oh, yeah, the Liberals are terrible. What was the vision for Poilievre's Canada? You never jumped in and set the narrative. At any point, Pierre could have gotten off the sidelines when Doug Ford and Mark Carney were doing something and jumped in. But instead, he just went sloganing. Again, he's not a sloganer. Tax attacks. The loss, once he got the carbon tax taken away. Remember, do you remember there was a whole month where everyone was carbon tax? That's what happened when the writ dropped. When Trudeau said he was running away. The carbon tax Christia. Carbon tax Carney at the carbon tax party is going to carbon tax you. Then what did Mark Carney do? Got in, did the Trump thing, boom. Carbon tax canceled. And what did Pierre do? Ref, no, they're not going to actually cancel. It's the consumer content, not the industrial one. Ref, you can't just sign it away. Ref, shut up, you loser talk. Loser talk. He took the one thing away from you. Oh, Daniel, what would you have done differently? Easy. Watch this. Look me in the eyes. Pierre, this is what you should have done when Mark Carney took away the carbon tax. Thank you, Mr. Carney. It's great that you've decided to adopt a conservative platform. It's now unanimous. Everyone in Canada, including Mark Carney, agrees that conservatives have the best platform, which is why they're instituting our platform. Again, I want to thank Mark Carney for his stewardship of the country in the transition from a Trudeau government to a conservative government, and your work in introducing our policies. As you see, they're including housing and whatever, blah, 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 blah. Act like you're the effing prime minister. Instead, you treated Mark Carney like the God King. And now he is the God King. Treat him like he's the prime minister and he's the leader, and you're his little subservient and you're nipping at his heels. Now you're nipping at his heels. You needed to go above him. Be the leader. Be brave. Be someone that people can follow. Who do people follow? People follow leaders, not oppositional people. Be a leader. You failed. You absolutely failed to set the narrative of what does Pierre Poilievre's Canada look like. I was speaking to someone in BC. Nice guy, smart guy, clearly university educated, openly non-political. These people still exist. I don't follow politics. It's not interesting to me. I don't do it. Whatever. And I was talking to him, but he voted, right? Civic duty, he voted early, him and his wife. What did he say he did? He's saying, I read all the platforms, different parties. It's still hard. He couldn't really distinguish them apart. He's a smart guy. He's not an idiot. He's just not politically active. Couldn't really tell the difference. And it wasn't, and I didn't ask him who he voted for, but was that not a warning signal that people couldn't sort of read your platform and identify it with something fundamentally different than what had been going on in Canada the last 10 years? Minimalists. You're minimalists and cowards, and that's why you lose. Because the Liberals get to set whatever narrative they want. Because they're at least setting a narrative. And people are going to nip it from Mark Carney now, always inconsistent. Doesn't matter. That's not the game. Do you think it matters that Mark Carney went elbows up and now he's going to Donald Trump and being like, Donald, you're such a transformative leader. You have great ideas, blah, 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 blah. Do you think the Liberals care? Oh, boomers are getting destroyed because Mark Carney didn't come into the Oval Office. Pew, pew. No, this is always what was promised. Listen, the reason why the Liberals won is because they sold Canada something. Okay? And it was something so frail and minuscule, but it was something, and people took it because the Liberals under Trudeau had destroyed the soul, the very soul of this country, and hollowed it out. It was an unspeakable act of evil, saying Canada's a genocidal place. It's a post-national state. There is no identity. Canada is nothing. John A. Macdonald's evil. You're evil. It's a fundamentally evil, rotten place. They had ripped Canada out of any meaning, and it caused chaos and disorder, among other things. And then Trump came in, and all of a sudden they were able to offer a positive Canada. Canada is good. Why? Because it's not America. Canada is good now. Something for the soul. It's something. It's again, I called it, cold gay Pakistan, right? We're just, we're not India. but that's something. That's at least a something in a spiritually identity starved country. That's something. Hockey, something. The Conservatives couldn't confidently get in there and say, this is our vision for Canada. Not just this, but also this, and this, and this, and this. Couldn't do it. Couldn't present a strong vision. Could not do it. And now Mark Carney is leader. And okay, and let's be realistic. Carlton. Pierre Poilievre lost Carlton. He got defeated in Ottawa. I know people in that riding. They all tell me that riding got more conservative with the redistricting, not less conservative. And he still lost. So say what you will about gerrymandering and the Liberals rigged the election. We all knew every 10 years this happens. This wasn't a deep state plan. Make yourself look like fools. Make yourself look like fools. Glaze this guy up. Give him a participation trophy. Big silver medal, like a silver statue. Let's put a big silver statue outside CPC headquarters of Pierre Poilievre. He lost Carlton, and now he's in the weakest position. So he then has to go find Jenny, get me the safest rider you can. He's in Battle River, Alberta, in the boonies in Alberta. So he didn't have the balls to even go to Calgary or Edmonton or like the suburbs there, where like, you know, he'd be closer to the centers of power and at least something. No, out totally in the boonies, the safest conservative riding in the country. You look scared, boy. Oh, don't say it. The Liberals are going to notice it. They're not stupid. They might be a bit crazy, a bit unethical, logically inconsistent at most times. They're not stupid as a political outfit. They'll make you. And think of the psychology. Of course, Mark Carney, look how much smarter Mark Carney is than Justin Trudeau. Do you think Justin Trudeau would have said, oh, yes, come in, Pierre, come back to opposition as soon as you possibly can. We need you here in Canada. No, Trudeau would have said, oh, I'll think about it. Maybe we have to talk about, does it fit a gender-based diversity analysis? And maybe we should kill all my political opponents. Who knows? And then people will be like, this guy's crazy and divisive. Not Mark Carney. Mark Carney actually understands the dynamics of power and understands that if he offers a hand to Pierre Poilievre and Poilievre is on shaky footing, the first thing Poilievre has to do is, one, take a couple months out of Parliament, let the Conservatives fight their own internal battle while you do your own thing. And then Carney has to come in and be gracious to Mark Carney. So Poilievre has to come in as a supplicant to Mark Carney because Mark Carney is up here, Pierre Poilievre comes in down here. And he has to thank Mark Carney. The first thing he has to do is acknowledge that Mark Carney is the boss. Or else he looks ungrateful and he looks like they're not playing Team Canada and blah, 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 blah. And Mark Carney's winning. He's winning. He's crushing it. He's crushing it. Does it mean I like Mark Carney? No. I understand. Mark Carney has the potential to be worse than Justin Trudeau because he's an actual competent, globalist, evil technocrat, whatever. The odds of me going to hate speech jail into some hate speech gulag in Mark Carney's Canada are much higher than they are in Justin Trudeau's Canada. I understand this. For anyone who's like, oh, you've abandoned the Conservative Party, you just wait till you... I know that I could get put into diversity hate speech jail because, something. I understand. But you have to understand there's also a greater chance that Mark Carney is a more conservative prime minister than Pierre Poilievre ever would have been. Because if Mark Carney decides to get resources to market, dude, what are we talking about here? Like, again, because Poilievre can't sell a vision of the soul and a narrative Canada. No, he can. He's just too afraid to. So what? Oh, we need to just listen, get axe the taxes. He axed the tax. He'll bring down a few more taxes. He's capping the immigration. Yeah, 2 million. It's still crazy, but he's capping it. Mark Carney is going to portray himself as a reasonable, competent, technocratic centrist. And the Liberals are going to eat it up. The Liberals don't want elbows up. The Liberals don't want to stick it to Donald Trump. The Liberals don't want to, you know what the Liberals want more than anything? They want to believe that they were always the party of John Chrétien and all that stuff, the reasonable, kind-hearted, smart people who can balance a budget and provide you human rights and all that type of stuff. And all Mark Carney has to do is play the part and get in. And where's Pierre going? So now Pierre's out in rural Alberta. Now you have Daniel Smith, I'm supporting Daniel Smith, making it easier to go to Alberta to referendum. You need to do that, Alberta. I think it's good for Canada, right? If Alberta has more leverage to threaten us into getting their resources to market so we can have a functioning country and they can have like a functioning economy and we could all be less poor and more rich and have less problems, I'm all in favor of it. But in order to do that, Daniel Smith is going to have to stoke the threat of Western separation and alienation. Oh, where's Pierre Poilievre right now? In the most conservative riding in Alberta. You don't think the Liberals are going to play shenanigans now that you're in Alberta with leveraging you on the separatist issue? And you're in a weaker footing because you're now a parachute candidate. Buddy, what are you doing? You should have gone to Abbotsford. You should have taken it from Sookman Gill, been like, sorry, you're blueberry farmer guy. We're coming back in. We're oopsie doodles, whitewash that thing, make that go away. You're still out west. You're in BC now. You don't get caught in the Alberta separatist nonsense, but you can still promote yourself as pro-West. That would have been the smarter move. But it needs a bit of courage, and we don't have any of that. So zero courage means you're not going to win any people over. Oh, Daniel, just give him time, be this and that. He needs to reinvent himself. Sure, I'll give him time. But Mark, you have to understand, as he's taking time to be off center and reinvent himself, he's giving Doug Ford and Mark Carney the ability to set the narrative and set the pace for Canada for the next 4 years. You don't think Mark Carney is going to get a trade deal in some sort of respect, something signed with Europe, the Europeans? And listen, Canadians are going to take it because now you can sell free trade and classical economic liberalism, actual like what we believe as conservatives financially, Milton Friedman, all that. You can sell it to the Canadian technocratic upper middle class, Ottawa, Montreal core as we're going to have an economy to spite Donald Trump. And they'll love it. And they'll do it. And if he gives us an economy, if Mark Carney can get resources to market, do you know how much money Brookfield could make? If they do it the right way. Billions. And why not? Why not? If Mark Carney and Brookfield can get our resources to market and make us a functioning economy, listen, if the Brookfield housing timing things end up being corrupt little, government-funded, gangland, drug-ridden, festering sores on society because of communism, yeah, call him out, and that's bad, and there. But if he can build a functioning, he's not stupid, okay? Yes, Mark Carney is a zealot on all these different things. But do you really think Mark Carney loves Greta Thunberg? Do you think Mark Carney gets up in the morning and goes, oh, geez, looks at his wife, I'm just so worried about the trees today. Oh, and there was a squirrel. I hope that's, no, money, influence. And now he has a chance to embed himself in the Canadian economic ecosystem and the global economic ecosystem. Listen, if he does Canada well, if he gets resources to market and builds it, Brookfield's investment pipeline, if he gets his investment sort of locked in the different parts of the Canadian supply chain and link it into the global supply chain, I'm not going to say no because the country's then going to prosper. And what, you're going to make the conservatives start yelling? Are we going to start yelling that, no, economics is bad, Marxism, protectionism, what? And you think, oh, we're going to yell at the left. You guys said that this was bad 3 years ago, but they don't care. They don't care. And what's happening now is the conservatives, what are we going to do? Criticize him for sucking up to Trump? Yeah, Mr. Trump, you're so great. No, we need to be harder on Trump. Who's that going to win over voting-wise? There's a reason why Mark Carney didn't need to pander to all the extremists. Yeah, he let them in the party and let them run around, but he wasn't flying the Khalistan flag. He wasn't going full, he went half Hamas. I don't like him. Yes, I think Pierre Poilievre is better. It's more conservative. Yes, but if we don't live in reality and don't understand that a lot of Canadian conservative commentary is just gassing up Pierre Poilievre. Woo! That friggin' video he just put out, spent a week in hiding, licking his wounds, spending time with his family, getting the safest possible riding he could in Battle River. And here I am with my wife walking down a field telling cliche. What of substance was said in that video? Name me one thing of substance in that video. Other than arguably we're going to do some soul searching and try and find out what went wrong. I will be shocked if there's any actual self-reflection done by the Conservative Party in 3 months. But other than that, we're going to keep fighting this. Nothing of substance was said in that video, and we're gassing them up. Woo! Great message. Woo! What's it? Pierre Poilievre is going to spend another 4 years on the sidelines, and and when it gets down to it, he's going to choke in the big moments because he doesn't have the ability to run the gauntlet and effing do it. And Mark Carney has every incentive if he wants to govern for 4 years. Again, he's in a loose minority. It's a decently secure minority. If Mark Carney wants to govern for 4 years, he can. And if he wants to get reelected, he needs to be more centrist. He needs to fix the relations with Trump. He needs to fix the relations with Western Canada, and needs to get some trade deals done and resources to market. If he does that, he'll win in a landslide. And what's Pierre going to do? Eat another apple? I like that moment where Pierre ate an apple. But Pierre ate an apple over a year ago, and you're still riding that. And then you hid from the media. Couldn't even do J.J. McCullough's podcast? You shouldn't have done Rogan and the American podcast circuit. But can you talk to some Canadians? Right, you did one podcast with a housing real estate guy. That was okay. Oh my God, Pierre's interview with Ben Mulrooney. Woof. And most of it was good. But if you listen to the 40-minute thing, come on, Pierre. How many times do you say lost liberal decade? You sounded like a slogan bot. That's not you. The lost liberal decade of this, carbon tax gone, need new slogan, lost liberal decade. No, we picked you because you don't need a slogan. You were supposed to be able to crush the podcast format, but you ran scared. You hid in the basement. You did the Biden basement strategy. It worked out for Biden the first time around. You widen the battlefield. You started selling off ridings to shit candidates. You didn't have them all filled. You failed. You ran this as too centrally controlled of a campaign. The Conservatives need to actually have some soul searching. What are they as a party? And you need to find some courage. Follow the yellow brick road, guys. Go to the end of the thing. Talk to the Wizard of Oz. Pierre Poilievre is a lion with no courage. Needs to find the courage, or else he's going to get smoked again. And that's just the hard reality. I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry to anyone who's mad about this. If you want Pierre Poilievre to do better, if you want the Conservative Party to do better, they need to do better. We cannot just be glossing over all of Pierre Poilievre's failures, only sort of promoting his thing, ignoring all his faults, and then trying to sell that to our own crew on Twitter. What are you doing? And I believe Pierre Poilievre could have hit the centrist, Toronto, Montreal people if he leaned into his strengths, which are those 5 to 10 minutes, explain things, no slogans, axe the tax, carbon tax. Daniel is telling me to carbon tax, not carbon tax slogans. Pierre, use your words, look people in the eyes, go and explain. That's your strength. And if he can't do that, then he's going to get blown out. And I understand the Conservative base's concerns. If we take him out, who's better right now? I get it. Like, best case scenario, Pierre Poilievre goes right now. You're looking at Jason Kenney. I'd say his best case scenario at this moment, and he has his own problems with the base. So, leave former COVID governors aside. What's the future like for this party? And also, guys, why do we have to be protecting Pierre Poilievre? Why are we building him a silver participation trophy medal? The great purchase. Why? There's not going to be an election for another 4 years. You like Pierre? You want to be the leader? Great. But why are we kissing his ass? He's in opposition. Smack him into shape. He's our servant. Like, we're the Conservatives. We're not supposed to respect the government. Yet we're treating this guy like he's the second coming, and he's a loser. He lost Carlton, a conservative riding that got more conservative. He got booted out of the conservative part of Ottawa. Then he has to go to Alberta, to the safest riding, to come back with his tail between the legs from a position of weakness to Mark Carney, who already have months to set the narrative and the tone. Unless Pierre Poilievre does something drastic and some real soul searching, and he's going to get blown out. If you want to go, and we're going to double down, and we're going to do Khalistan Zindabad, everyone vote for me because the Liberals are mean. Great. Enjoy being the most successful opposition leader of all time, governing the opposition for 30 years.